Welcome to Scar Tissue, the podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Dugalecki, and here we understand the power that lies within our pain, that lies within the scars and the wounds and the nicks and the burns that come with the experience of life. When we learn how to leverage this, it is a powerful tool and capital that not only can take you to your next level in your life, but can make massive impact on others as well in the most beautiful ways. So here on Scar Tissue, we have real, raw, and relatable conversations that will show you that there is not one way to live, that the word should doesn't exist and doesn't serve us in the vocabulary of our lives, that you are meant to live and create your most authentic self, and that we are worthy of everything, but entitled to nothing. It is up to us to create it, and to create from a place of love, opportunity, possibility, and authenticity. Let's dive in. All right, everybody, I am so excited to introduce you to Lauren Courtney, who is a dear friend of mine, but friend doesn't actually do it justice. We're on this soul journey together. Lauren is absolutely magical in who she is and what she creates in this world. And I really can't give a title to describe exactly what you do. Like, I really can't. Like, I'd love to be like, and she is this, right? But, you know, among many things, Lauren is an energy worker. She is a healer. She is like a spiritual guide. She is a channel. She's an exceptional culinary artist. And I think if I were to pick one word, it'd probably be artist. Because everything you do are just the vehicles to express your art. And also a soon-to-be author.
Yeah.
So without further ado, welcome to the unnamed podcast at this point, Lauren. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I love that. I've been sitting with this idea that I am an artist and everything I do is a form of art, whether it's healing art, food being art, or actually like creating art, which you've gotten to see in my home over the last few days. It is all art. It's all an expression. For a while, I called it magician energy, and I still work with that and alchemy energy, and it truly is art.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's always funny when someone who's you know, like a business person that's like, pick the niche, choose the niche.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't really label you. I'm like, tell me about it. I've been trying to label myself for years.
And it's so funny because this podcast in its newest iteration is about not living a normal life, like living that rare life, living the abnormal. And you are such an embodiment of that. So much so we can't put a title on it. You know, every time I come to your place, it's like, I was joking last night, but I wasn't joking. I'm like, am I going to crawl out of here? Because it's like this portal of lessons and collapsing time and learning. And that is truly what the show is about. What are we learning in our time here? It's, I think, you know, the very 3D version of Melissa was a teacher, right? But I think actually in my 5D, like my soul is a teacher. And that's what I want to do here. So, Lauren, we're going to learn from you today.
Amazing. We're all the students and the teachers.
We're all the students and the teacher. So talk to us, tell people a little bit about who you be, what what you've created, and how you've gotten here.
Oh, gosh.
How much time do you have?
So I am all of those things. I am a chef. I am a healer. I am an artist. I am a musician. I am an author. I'm a writer. And I didn't know any of those things about myself for a long time. For much of my life, I grew up, I went to college, and then I thought, like, now I am from New York. So it was like, okay, well, now I moved to Manhattan. And then eventually, like, I moved out of Manhattan, white picket fence, like 2 kids, husband, dog, etc. And then it was like, no. Pull back, sweetie. Your path is different than the paths you've seen for others. So when I graduated college, I worked a regular kind of job, even though it was a cool job. I did event planning and personal assistance for professional athletes. Then I started having this like inner knowing that I was here to help people heal. I have no idea what that meant. And I decided to follow that whisper, and that whisper slowly but surely led me out of corporate America to becoming a holistic health coach, and then to becoming a private chef working with clients recovering from food, drug, and alcohol addiction. So that was the first layer of awareness that I was here to do something different that I'd never seen anyone do before. This was even before Instagram was cool. I just started posting like random food photos, and like my captions were all hashtags and everything was like in lo-fi, like back 10 years ago. And I really enjoyed what I was doing. I started my own meal delivery service. I was doing food styling, food photos, like just really paving this new path, and thought like, this is it. I'm helping people heal. Like, this is it. And then 7 years ago, my best friend passed away. And the day he crossed over, he was my first love. He was someone I've known since I was 16 years old. And the day he crossed over, he began communicating with me. It's a story, of course, I've shared with you many times, and I've shared many times over. And it's one that I realize is important. I continue to share because we all have these moments that something just awakens us, and we have a choice to choose differently. And I was already going through an awakening without realize I was going through an awakening. I had found Kundalini yoga. I was working as a chef, all these things. When Jeff passed away, there was no denying that he was talking to me. I could feel him. I could hear him through music. It was very clear. And that path led me to leaving my career as a chef. I moved out to California, ended up becoming a spiritual advisor to a cannabis brand as I was unlocking my spirituality and finding Reiki is what I found initially. That was the first tool. So I found Usui Reiki, did my levels 1 and 2, moved to California, found Holy Fire Reiki. And when I got exposed to that and ignited into that healing modality, my soul fully awakened. It was like, hello, like, I'm here. I'm literally seeing like both Jim Carrey like in The Mask and Robin Williams and Miss Doubtfire, like, hello, like there is no going back to sleep. And that's when like things started getting fast, and I became a spiritual advisor to a cannabis brand. I was traveling and cooking with them and doing healing work. They'd call me Chef Shaman at the time. That was like my little name, Chef Shaman. And I went on this journey to continue to figure out who I was, and they gave me an opportunity. And through that, I ended up a year and a half later moving to Miami, finding sound healing and fully growing a business. Like I was basically, after I worked in cannabis, like my guides were like, we're throwing you out to the wolves, and it's now your time to figure it out. And I ended up growing a 6-figure business that started all with healing myself. Like all of the work that I've done, all the courses that I teach, all of the sound healings I sell, like they were for me first. Everything's been for me first. I believe that what we heal in ourselves, we can then offer to other people. So I continue to this day to show up. Like right now I'm in a 9-month training to be a Kundalini yoga instructor. Will I teach that like all the time religiously? No, probably not. I'll probably weave it with other things that I study and learn. In December, I got trained in energy orgasms and tantric practices and Kundalini activation process, because I believe there are so many ways that we can awaken and remember our authentic truth. So I'm simply out in the world hunting and gathering for my tools, just as I did in other lifetimes. I'm a hunter and a gatherer, and then I bring it back to the community and serve, and then I leave for a while and get more tools and come back.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I mean, I love it so much, and thinking about, just generating capital in different ways, right? Experience capital, right? Exploratory capital. And as you're generating this quote unquote wealth, you are then abundantly sharing it with people who you serve, and just how powerful is that? And, you talked about the awakening. And I think, unfortunately, many times our awakenings come from significant loss. Not everyone, but, some people might say rock bottom moment. For some, it could be in their own life, a rock bottom moment. For both of us, I mean, my awakening, I would not be awake, quote unquote, awake, if I hadn't lost my daughter. And something I'm just curious about, truthfully, like, I don't know that we've talked about this or not, but I play with this kind of guilt sometimes of like, life is so great because of what I learned from the worst thing in the world. And how do I know you're a master at this, how do I push out the human experience of guilt and invite in the soul experience of trust and gratitude and love, that this is so much bigger than what we can see right now. And this is exactly what was meant to unfold in the way that it unfolded. And so for a lot of people listening, they're navigating grief. And there's this push and pull in a lot of people I've worked with around, can I move forward? Like, if I move forward and I'm happy, am I saying it's okay? Do I not care? And so how would you speak to somebody in that position?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I've actually, since Jeff's passing, I've had 5 other really close people that have passed away. A best friend from kindergarten, my grandmother, my great aunt, and my dad's best friend. So I've gotten to really navigate grief over these last 7 years in ways I've never experienced. And as far as guilt, the one thing I've learned is guilt is a wasted emotion. We don't get extra credit in heaven for it.
Yeah.
And I used to always say, like, Jewish guilt is such a thing, but like, we can talk to anyone in any family and there's guilt. Like, there's Catholic guilt, the Italian guilt, right? Yeah. Like, there's always guilt. So it's like, first and foremost, let's let go of the guilt. Let's stop putting that kind of pressure on ourselves that we need to feel guilt. Now, when it comes to navigating loss, for me, I understand that my experience, like we'll talk about Jeff for a moment, my experience in Jeff's loss is going to be very different than his parents' experience, than his sister's experience, than his brother-in-law's experience, right? So for me, what I've learned is you have to be in your truth about the experience. And as long as you're in your truth and that's your experience, everyone else can also be in the truth about their experience. So what I've learned over all of these years and doing the work that I do, my truth, is that we come into this life choosing the experiences we're going to have so our souls can ascend further in this lifetime. So it was a contract that Jeff and I made when he chose to leave, that in our contract, he would help me awaken and remember. So the gratitude that I have for him choosing to transition in the way that he did, and in that give me the life that I have, is the greatest, most selfless act he could have provided me. I think a lot of people think, like, when you, and I've had to process this a lot, like, that people are selfish when they choose to leave, whatever, everyone leaves in different ways, right? And there was a period where I grieved, like, you're so fucking selfish. Like, why would you leave me here to figure all this out? Like, why would you leave me here to figure this out? And it's like, wow, you gave me such a gift to help support me in figuring out this world. So I think we have our moments where we get to dance with the anger and sadness and grief. And then for me, it was the coming to terms with, we chose this. Like, you and I chose this before we got here. And also having the awareness that whatever he chose with his parents as well is for their experience. And, as a medium and someone that's connected and able to communicate with him, I can sometimes see what those things are. And also I've had to pull back over the years, like, it's none of my business. Yeah. Like, that's your experience that you get to have. I can't tell you how to have your experience. So, clients that want to work with me, I help them move through the experience. But we can't tell anyone how to have an experience. We can simply give someone another perspective and hold that space for them to see their own truth.
That's so potent, and, a lot to unpack there, but there's a lot of what I'm hearing is personal responsibility, right? A lot of gratitude. And again, a word that I've spoken to earlier, of course, allowance. Like, you do have to allow people to have their own experiences, to learn their lessons. And that's been something that I had to unlearn in my journey, because I wanted to, no, just do this. Why can't you do this? Why can't you be like that? Right? With both myself right? Because it starts with us,
Yes.
with both myself and people in my life. And God, how exhausting was that version of Melissa? Like, I'm sorry, people, I'm so sorry. But I think a lot of people can relate. I'd love to speak into that a little bit more of like feeling as though like it feels easier to tell someone what to do or to demand what they do, or I will say give ultimatums. And so for a listener who's like, well, yeah, but why don't they just do it like that? How can you empower them into or support them or both, right? Because it's both in allowing more for people to have their own experience and come back to it's none of my business. Yeah.
I think that, like, it's funny, I was recording a podcast for Portals this morning that
Were you?
just came up. Yeah, I was like, I had this download that I needed to share as it's the 4-4 portal today.
That's right.
It was about ego.
Mm.
And I think that's what it comes down to. Like, at the beginning of my journey, I was like, oh, well, I found Reiki. I have all of the answers now. Why wouldn't you just do Reiki? Like, it's the answer to everything. Yes, and.
Yes, and.
There are so many answers. There are so many ways to access your truth. There are so many ways to tune in with yourself. So I think like for me, it started with like, pull it back, Lauren. You don't have all the answers. Yeah. You have wisdom and knowledge, and you're only tapping the surface right now. Mm-hmm. So pull back your projections on what you think people need to do based on your experience. And can you instead hold the space with love for that person to have the experience that they're meant to have? Mm-hmm. And I think that's even what I noticed like in coaching. I don't really call myself a coach anymore. I'm more of an advisor. Yeah. Because when we're coaching, I find like it's like go, like
very motivational,
energy, which is great to have. What if I simply sit here and hold a frequency and hold an energy for you to explore the emotions that are being brought up by me simply holding a vibration of unconditional love? Because when I'm wanting to coach or tell you when it feels like, why wouldn't you do it this way? It's like, that's the ego. Sure. That's the ego getting loud and this is the right way. When it comes from a place of, I'm just going to hold this energy and I'm going to love you unconditionally, no matter the experience you're choosing to have. I think that's so much more productive because it's coming from you. Yes. It's like when someone goes to a psychic, right? Like you can go to a psychic and they can tell you a path, and you can go to a psychic, they can tell you a path, and then you walk out the door, and instead of going to the left where that path may take you, you may take a right, and now that psychic knew nothing. Oh, you have free will.
Free will. Yeah. And I do think that it's important to understand, and here's a very tangible example, right? Teacher and me. Like, this is something I come back to when I feel so passionately. Now, I think it's great to feel passionate about, whatever we're doing in a moment. Like, this is it. Like, that's great.
For sure.
But projecting that on other people, that that's what they need to do, right, is an issue. And so I always come back to this silly example, but I think it's very tangible. There was a time in my life where I would have sworn on everything. I would have told everyone this was the healthiest thing to have grape nuts with skim milk and like a friggin' pound of Splenda on it, right? Because I was so damn healthy. I wouldn't even let that near my body now. So that halts me from being righteous in what I'm currently choosing, as if somebody else should also choose that. Like, hey, this is what I'm currently choosing. You can opt in or not. I don't know if I'm going to be choosing this in a year. I don't know if I'll be choosing this in a month. But I think anyone listening can look back at like, what is something that you were maybe righteous, use a different word, but so hell-bent on that now you laugh. And when you can look at that, that can translate to a value, to a belief, to a mindset, to how you move your body, to what you eat and consume. And really just be like, I might change my mind. And so how can I tell anyone else that they should be choosing into this, right? Because it's not permanent.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And like even my human design, I'm a 3-5 martyr heretic. I'm here to test things out and see what sticks. I'm here to throw spaghetti against the wall. Like messy is sexy is the motto for me. So I'm also in that here to teach through my experiences. So I've learned that I don't need to teach while I'm in the experience. I can let it simmer.
Right.
I can let myself like, okay, the pot's not boiling over anymore. No, it's just this nice, beautiful simmer. The flavors are getting really good. Let me share from this space as opposed to like, okay, we're testing it out. We're testing it out. Like, what do we want to put in the pot? What we want to take out? Now it feels good. The flavors are nice.
Yes.
I can share from here.
I think, and there's a good amount of, coaches, consultants, mentors who listen to this. And I think it is important to remember that what you are teaching and coaching now will likely evolve and change.
1,000%.
And all you can do is allow people, that is like the theme of this podcast, allow people to choose into it. But your responsibility is to share, I believe, authentically, right? And in truth, and trust that the rest will unfold.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was saying that to a client earlier this week. She was saying she just had a huge hit on social media and her following grew like 30,000 overnight from a post or two. She was like, I feel backed into a corner a little bit. Like, I don't know what to sell now. And my advice to her was, well, what lights you up? What's exciting you right now?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to cater to these 30,000 people because you can and because you can optimize. Optimize what feels good inside of you.
Correct.
And those people will either resonate with it or others will.
Correct.
So just stay in your truth no matter what the shift is. Like as long as you stay true to you, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Gosh, social media is such a mirror for so much, isn't it? And I look back on my own journey and I deleted my first few posts. I was so afraid to put it out there. I was so afraid of judgment. I literally, gratefully, I have a team now, but like, I don't even know what's going up half the time. Right. And I'll like open it up like, oh, nice job, guys. But what I love about social media is if you leverage it, it teaches you detachment. Because I will put out content. I write my captions. I will put out content, but some people it'll pop off, right? Like you were just saying, your friend. And some people, it'll just completely fall flat. But what a great teacher for me to detach and not take it personally. And just, I know what I'm putting out there is me, my voice, and authentic. And so anyone else sees it, it's how it relates to them. And I think that's so powerful, Yeah. Yeah. All right. So in this spiritual space in which we are all cruising, there's a lot of, I think, misunderstandings. I think there's a lot of toxic positivity. I think there's a lot of hidden righteousness and a lot of hidden ego. Can you speak into some of, or how you even navigated the darkness that can actually be within this space of light?
Even as you're saying that, and I think about my journey and where I'm at currently right now in terms of my own personal practices, I think that's the biggest anchor in everything is how are we showing up for ourselves? Because the truth of the matter is, like, we all have dark and light within us.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to honor that within yourself, you're projecting it often outwardly. And, if you spot something, it's because you have it. Like,
right.
If you spot it, you got it.
Yeah.
So I think there were times where I was spotting things and it was simply, I wasn't ready to see them in myself. And as I've, done more work to heal my ego, because the thing is, we want an ego.
Sure.
We were born with ego because we're meant to have ego. There's a healthy ego, which is a vehicle for this third dimensional world. And there's the unhealthy ego. So I think understanding that first and foremost, that we can be healthy or we can be unhealthy in our ego is such an important understanding for us to have. And for me, it's been focusing on if I feel myself wanting to be in a judgmental place, come back to yourself. Like,
Sure.
What are you really judging? What are you really looking at? Because yeah, there is going to be shadowy characters in the healing world, in the coaching world, in any world, right? Like
Yep.
VPs of companies,
Athletes.
like everywhere.
Yep.
So I think it always comes back to like, who are you and how are you showing up for yourself? And as we can transmute that duality in us, then we hold that frequency to transmute it for others. So like right now for me, over the last 2 years, my biggest work has been fully opening up my heart. And not just like, oh, I'm opening up my heart space, like more love. And I'm someone that signs every journal entry to myself. I am love, I am light, I am Lauren. I've been doing it for 10 years. It channeled through, it's never stopped, so I continue to do it, right? So it's not a level of toxic, I am love and light. Like, that is simply who I am. So every day I'm reminded more and more, like, I am love, I am light. How do I connect further to this? So for me, as I've been opening up my heart space more and more, it hasn't only been from the front. It's also been from the back. Where have I been stabbed in the back? Where have I stabbed other people in the back? Where have I been hurt? Where have I been unwilling to see things, right? What are the things that were happening behind me that I didn't want in front of me? And I've been working to open that space up, whether it be through body work, through Kundalini yoga, through breath work, like everything I've been doing to show up for it. And in doing that, what I've come to is, a long time ago, I lived in a very like structured, rigid, corporate environment. And then I went all the way to the flip side of like, I am flowy, I am airy, I am free, I don't want to hear me roar, right? Both of those were actually toxic.
Yes.
Like I went from toxic masculinity to toxic femininity. And then what needed to happen was I needed to come to oneness. So first oneness looked like, okay, I've gone from black and white to gray. And this gray scale, I think, is actually like just as toxic in a lot of ways. It's like, okay, well now I've accepted both parts of me. I am love, I am light, right? Beautiful. And that's not where it ends. So that's where I've been in, the place where it doesn't end. And what that brought me to was a spectrum of color. It brought me actually into the rainbow. So I think that's like that next level. And the level I've been entering into over the last really like 90 days in my Kundalini practice and through my Kundalini practice has been turning that rainbow of colors and alchemizing it into gold.
Ooh.
So for me, it comes back to me. It comes back to like, let me not focus on like what everyone else is doing and how they're doing it. What am I doing? How am I showing up for myself? Like when I see myself not vibrating at my highest or doing something that's not at my highest, instead of like pointing the finger, well, they're doing it too. It's like, that's cool. Come back to yourself. Because no one else is stopping me from being in my authentic truth. And I think, you know, I talked a little bit about a date I went on this last weekend and how I was able to see in the date that he was choosing old patterns that I had in my own life. And in that, I decided this no longer serves me. I can spend time with him, I can hang out with him, and I can be in that energy, or I can simply say, this doesn't align with me. And I think that's like where I see it, like for all areas of life. It's like, I can look at you and tell you you're wrong, or I can look at you and be like, you're doing a great fucking job. Like, this is where you're at. So let me meet you where you're at. Doesn't mean I need to hang out with you. It doesn't mean I need you to be my coach. It doesn't mean I need you to be my friend, my teacher, my boyfriend, my whatever. I can accept you for who you are. I'm going to come back to me.
That's I'm like, this is how we just go into vortexes and portals. But I was envisioning, I had this vision as you were speaking, because we also talked about like my own patterns in which I've continued to attract in. And everyone listening, you're going to attract in the patterns until you learn it. But I was envisioning this spectrum of, as you were speaking into that, of this like line graph. If you're listening, you can't see me moving my hands, but I'm moving my hands. And it's like where you're just repeating the pattern and you have absolutely no conscious awareness of it. and you're almost in a victim state. Why does this keep happening to me? Why does this keep happening to me? Why does this keep happening to me? Then we progress into an awareness state. We're aware of it, but like we still choose into it. And we're aware of what we're doing, right? And then the progression becomes on a 1 to 10, the amount of time that it takes to identify the pattern, experience the pattern, and choose out of the pattern shortens.
Yeah.
So we shorten the time. And then, as you and I were talking about this weekend, was we choose differently. And I think when you get to that space where you choose differently, maybe it's 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, but I think eventually the pattern stops appearing.
Yeah.
And that's how I envision this line chart. I had that from when you were speaking. So thank you. I wanted to share that.
Yeah, and it's true. I put an Instagram post up about this morning because it will get easier.
Yeah.
And you will see it maybe 1 or 2 or 3 times or however many you need to reprogram your mind, because essentially we're making choices based on the unconscious programming we have from our childhood. So now we need to make the choice to consciously choose differently. And if we programmed I am unworthy 1,000,000 times, we're now going to have to reprogram I am worthy 1,000,001 times. So now it's official. I am worthy, period. End of story. We don't have to test this anymore.
Right. Exactly. And that's the mastery.
Yeah.
That is the mastery. It's so powerful. And I think, I want to transition a little bit into what you're speaking about, toxic femininity, right? As 2 women here who have probably both been in both toxic masculine, toxic feminine. I want to talk about that just for a few moments, but if anyone is navigating on this spectrum, this line chart of patterns, what was a game changer for me was to stop bringing shame and judgment.
Yes.
Because you actually can't break through in shame and judgment. And that kept me stuck for years. Shame and judgment, hiding it, denying it because of the shame and judgment. Whereas when you can just be like, fuck, I'm doing that thing I do again, right? Why the fuck am I doing this again, right? Why do I keep calling this in? Why am I choosing this? Like, okay, this isn't the best choice and I'm doing it, right? I just want to invite anyone into like, you're not perfect.
Yeah, and we love you.
Yeah.
I love you more because you're willing to see your shit.
Yeah.
And then look at it for a while and dance with it. What a gift.
What a gift, right? In this human experience. I just got so excited about that. I whacked my head on this wall here. But what would you identify as some maybe yellow flags, red flags around toxic femininity? And again, we could speak into toxic masculine. A lot of people are very well aware of that, but I think as 2 women who are spiritual, and I think a lot of the toxic feminine can hide under a spirituality, banner, let's say. How could somebody maybe identify, is that an embodied feminine or is that a toxic feminine?
I think the interesting thing about the feminine is she hides and she's conniving, deceitful, and the siren energy, right? She can pull you in. She's very seductive. That was my toxic feminine traits. I was very seductive in my energy, and I didn't know that I was being toxic with my energy.
Sure.
And I read this great book last year, actually. It was called From Maiden to Mother. And as I started reading that book, there was another book, I'm not going to remember the name of it, similar vibes. What I started to realize was I was really unhealthy and I was very wounded. So the things I was doing, I was actually acting from wounded feminine energy. So it is toxic and it's wounded. So it's not so much for me about the love and light. It's about why am I calling in these specific patterns over and over and over again? And because I had this unhealed feminine energy, which for me was that I led a lot of my life from a place that was more sexual and siren and that energy. So for me, that was my toxic feminine energy, which quite honestly is a lot of like toxic masculine energy too. And I'll own it. Like, I was a toxic woman doing toxic things simply because I didn't know better. Because that's where my wounding was. Yeah.
I love how you said, I'll own it. Like, we just gotta own it. We just got to own it. Like, I know for me, when I look back, when I was in a unhealthy feminine, toxic feminine, however we want to label it, it was very much a save me.
Yeah.
I associated I could get love and attention, or I was worthy of love and attention if I was in distress. So I created situations subconsciously of distress time and time again to try and get my needs met that weren't being met and that I wasn't confident or valuing myself enough to ask for. But if I don't have a car, if I don't have money, if I'm sick, this knight in shining armor will come in and save me.
Yeah.
And that was mine. That was a big one.
That is a big one. And it's so great to have the realization because, like you said, it's unconscious. We don't even realize we're doing it. Like, for me, I was looking for love outside of myself because I simply didn't know how to love myself because I was extremely numb from years on pharmaceutical drugs that were prescribed to me. So I became numb to my feelings and emotions. So I was constantly trying to get feelings and emotions out of other people to trigger my own emotions, which is extremely toxic.
Yeah.
But that's what I would do, and then I would end up in really unhealthy relationships.
Yeah. I think, gosh, we could do a whole other episode on the feminine and understanding it. It's something we're both still, I think, it's always an evolving. There'll never be a finish line, right?
Oh.
Like, there'll never be a finish line. And one more point to that, like, for me, another one, just because I think it's helpful for our listener to maybe, if you hear it, spot it, you got it, right? You can begin to heal it.
Yeah.
Right. If you hear it, maybe you can heal it. Right. Mine was very much the nurturer in me, which is, and to your point before, there's dark and light to everything. So my light is I'm such a nurturer. Right. I really have a very strong maternal energy. And that was coming out in a negative way of I was putting myself out at such a cost to take care of other people and put their needs first, very much people pleasing, very much martyr. But I would almost have this unspoken expectation of like, well, I just did all this for you. Why aren't you taking care? Why aren't you doing this for me? So I was like creating this victim martyr from leveraging my nurturer in an unhealthy way. And so it's looking at how can you take whatever isn't working for you and actually leverage it in a way that can become a superpower, because it can. Because my nurturer is a superpower. Right? As long as I harness it correctly. And so how did you take some of these things you went through and turn them into superpowers that serve now? Because I know you did.
Well, first of all, like, by a show of hands in the audience, we can't see, like, raise your hand if you can relate to that one. Over here, 2 hands up for being an over nurturer. I mean, I'm a Cancer who used to be a chef. So I've always loved to cook for my partners. And I've given so much of myself. And in turn, like, been left so empty. So what I've actually done is I've come back to myself, right? Like, why am I giving so much to this partner? I was briefly dating someone during the pandemic and he came to stay with me. And I was building out my business. I was building out my Glow Up Your Chakras program. Like, it was my initial, like, regular, like, coaching program. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to turn it into an online program. So I was building something very big that I'd never done before. And then he came to stay with me. And at the same time, he was building his business. And I found myself not only building my business, but helping him create graphics and build his, while also cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Oh my goodness.
And the beautiful thing was that prior to him coming to stay with me, I had this really clear awareness that he was not the man for me. And I did my best to let him know and to end it. And I allowed myself to be gaslit. I allowed him to say to me, well, you haven't been in a relationship for a while. I think you're scared. I let my friends chime in. He seems like a great guy. Even though I knew this isn't correct for me. And I let him come. And like I said, I built my business, his business, and put food on the table multiple times a day. And then when he left after 2 weeks staying with me, he let me know that he didn't feel like it was right after I had given him so much. And I already knew it wasn't right?
Right.
Yet I was left in this moment of like, who are you? Like, to tell me that this isn't right when A, I already knew that, and B, I just gave you so much. And that was an opportunity actually for me where I was like, I'm not dating for a while. I'm going to start dating myself.
Oh.
I'm going to start cooking for myself, because I notice I cook more for people when I'm in a relationship, because like it's just I find the joy in providing and taking care of others. So I started cooking more for myself. I started writing my healing cookbook. I started bringing cooking back into work with aligned clients and opportunities, cooking on retreats, cooking for one-on-one intensives, because I realized I wasn't nurturing myself fully by fully owning all of my gifts. Because I think it's so easy. Like, we as women are so multifaceted.
Yes, we are.
And we sometimes feel like, well, I can only do this one thing.
Right.
And that's why I love how that you introduced me as an artist today, because I am an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot to offer the world in many different ways. And when I'm in my toxicity, I feel it's like, nope, it's this way. It's specific. It's in this box, when it's not actually that way.
Yeah.
So through that relationship, what I learned was how to really take care of myself. And it was a very backwards way of learning how to take care of myself, because I fully depleted myself. I fully depleted all of my feminine energy. I gave away all of my creative energy. Like, I drained out my sacral chakra to this man, both sexually and in business and in cooking. I gave all of my power away. And then I took the time to be like, okay, now that you've drained it all, like,
how do I
let's take it all back. And
so many things here. And you know, I want to highlight some themes, and you talked about your offerings. I want to let people know how they can work with you before we kind of close this one loop. I know we'll open another one. I'm like, are we going to record another one while I'm here? Because we got a lot. We could take each of these things and go into an entire episode. But, you know, one, I love tangibles. I love it. But one thing I look back when I look at that version of me that was over giving and overextending, I look at the version of me that was in debt, had like no money, but wanted to please a male at a cookout who loved lobster, macaroni, and cheese. So I went to a special place that had lobster and spent way too much money on lobster. And, you know, I wouldn't just go to the regular grocery store lobster. I had to go to the like seafood market and like spent hours Pinteresting a fucking lobster, macaroni, and cheese recipe. Okay. Like, went to 2 different stores, researched. So now we're talking like 5-6 hours into a fucking lobster, macaroni, and cheese, and it was $92.
First of us.
And I look at that version of me, and I just feel so sad. But now it's like, if I'm going to a cookout, like, your girl's got a lot going on right now. I'm really busy creating the life of my dreams and my vision. Like, we're going to pick up or get delivery or outsource that shit, right? And so I just think, again, Lauren and I are really speaking into own it. Laugh at yourself, but learn from yourself.
Amen.
Because we can't just laugh at ourselves if we're not learning. We can laugh because we know that we always just learn.
Yeah.
Right. And as we learn, it is just a beautiful evolution of our souls. And as you always speak into, the collective, right, evolution or an ascension of our souls. So speaking of learning and evolving, how can people, you know, work with you, access your magic, and where can they find you?
I have to just share with you real quick. Before I moved from New York to LA, I had been dating someone for a while, and he never ate my food. We were just hanging out.
Sure.
We weren't dating, we were hanging out. And one of our last hangouts, I was like, I'm going to make you dinner. I made mac and cheese. So interesting is cheese is something, I don't remember like what the actual word is within cheese, but it feeds your heart. Like it's one of the foods, one of the hormones that it activates is something within the heart, similar to chocolate as well. So when I know when I'm craving cheese, I'm like, okay, what does my heart actually need? And listen, I eat cheese all the time. We can still have cheese. Paying attention to the body.
I'm shook right now because anyone who knows me knows that after Layden died, I would count down like I couldn't eat, and I would count down and I would cut up cheese, and I'm gluten-free, chance of bread here and there, but, charcuterie. But I would have Tostito chips on a plate with sliced cheese and literally sit in Layden's rocker. And that, when I look back at my grief, is like what I remember. That's the only thing I could eat. And I have never heard that, and it's been 10 years.
Wow.
So guys, if anyone is questioning Lauren's magic, there you go. So Lauren, where can people find you?
So you can find me online. My website is Lauren Courtney Heals. I'm on Instagram at I am Lauren Courtney. I'm slowly adding to my TikTok.
Yes, you are.
Just like having fun playing over there at I am Lauren Courtney as well. There are all sorts of ways to work with me. Not that many, actually. I have one mastermind called the Weekly Glow Up, where we meet once a week. And I'm also available for one-on-one aligned clients. You can fill out the form and apply to work with me. And I've got tons of courses online that are sound healing and journal prompt based. So you can become your own guru, because that's what it's about. Like, I'm not here to be put on a pedestal by anyone. I'm here to live like on my own pedestal. Sometimes my heels are a little higher than other days, but I choose my pedestal height for myself, because we're all here to be our own gurus. We're all 100%. Here to awaken ourselves up. Like, Jesus reminds us, right? As this Jewish girl that found Holy Fire Reiki and Jesus. Jesus reminds us, like, we're our own greatest healers, and we have just as strong of abilities to heal ourselves as Jesus did. And we need to know that, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to recognize that, because no one's coming to save you. You got to save yourself. Mic drop on that. We can't drop these, but if I could, we would. You guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Lauren, thank you for sharing your friendship, your love, your magic, your wisdom. And you guys, check out her work. Go be your own guru, your own teacher, your own student. And don't forget, it gets to be fun. Laugh at yourself, and don't take it too seriously. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing the space of scar tissue with me. I hope you found value in this episode. It is truly my commitment and goal to bring what I believe will serve you in your life, no matter what you're navigating. Again, this show is inspired from the loss of my daughter, Layden, and through my grief journey, really understanding empathy, understanding empowerment, understanding how to be the creators of our lives in a whole new way that is stronger than circumstance, that focuses on progress, not perfection, that loves the process, and lets go of attachment to outcome. So whatever resonated the most with you, allow that to serve you in you elevating to your next level. And if you love this show, please share it. Please pass it along, spread this work, and it would mean so much if you took a moment to even rate and review it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I appreciate being here with you all, and it is an honor to witness your journeys and your greatness.